Well, yeah, I've always loved history. I like history of any type. I like to travel. And as a kid, I was interested in city planning. I was telling you that earlier. I liked to read about and look at pictures of cities growing. I like looking at pictures of Cincinnati in this era and how it's changed to now. And so obviously the same goes for Anacortes, and even more so that I live here and I've lived here my whole life. I find it fascinating. When I go to Europe or the East Coast and places that are rich in history, I go to museums, I go to places kind of like this. So coming back, realizing that my small little town has a cool museum, it has a really rich history, a unique history actually, if you compare it to a lot of cities of similar size. I just find it really inspiring. I think the more I traveled after high school and came home to Anacortes, the more I liked Anacortes. Maybe just saw how unique it was. Growing up, I was pretty self-absorbed. You kind of live in your own little bubble. And so Anacortes was just what I knew. And then as I began to travel, even as I began to play shows in places like Spokane and Seattle and Portland, not that far away, coming back, seeing Anacortes a little bit differently as I got invested in the local music scene, realized how special it was. You know, I would visit cities much larger than Anacortes that didn't really have the culture that we had here. Honestly, I could say that I think this area and the music made here, the people who've kind of cultivated the artistic and music culture here have been probably the biggest influences on me in my art. The music culture and just the general culture of encouraging creative risk, doing something different. I think it's highly unusual to find that type of community in a small town like Anacortes. The last time I left, I was in Southern California for 7 months and lived in one of the wealthiest communities in the United States. Coming back to Anacortes suddenly seemed much more blue collar and rugged than I remembered. As I've gotten older, maybe I've just become more aware of the people here, the history here, even the fact that this was, and some would say still is, Samish and Swinomish land. One thing that has changed my perception of Anacortes is having visitors, artists, musicians, mostly people from all over come and visit me and say things like, this place is really special. I know a lot of people who would probably live here if they could. If you think about what type of town Anacortes is, that's just really unusual to hear, especially from young people. So it just kind of like gets you thinking, like, this little town where I grew up is, it's just unique and it's fascinating. I'm writing a record slowly that I really like. It's the fourth part in this album series I'm trying to do. Writing a new buffet record, writing songs with old friends. I mean, just in the last 5 weeks, I started writing songs for my son. I wrote a song the other day called Crying. It's Okay to Cry. I wrote another song called Swimming. This is just about swimming and how you spell the word swimming. So clearly, having a child will change what I write about, but I actually would like to write songs for other artists because I enjoy the occasional performance, but it's not really something I want to do all the time. And so I like the idea of writing a song and then giving it to someone else to sing. Maybe just trying to exist in a more peaceful manner, more rooted manner now that I have a kid, and I know that Anacortes is where I want to be for the long haul. So, existing in the community in a more involved way. That's what's next. I really want to encourage people, if they have pictures of buildings, places that have now been developed from the last 30, 20 years, they really should try to bring them into the museum and have them archived. I think it's really important. You think about all the disposable cameras and digital cameras that people were using in the 90s and 2000s, earlier 2000s. those photos are so easily lost, and we haven't really been thinking about them. And I really think if people remember, they should come in and have them scanned.
You and I, different paces, stuck here waiting tables in hell. You and I, different spaces with similar symptoms to quell. You ask, where does the light go when it hits the edge of space? Does it burn up someplace? Every yes is multiple no's. Do you know what I mean? Every no is a yes to a future yes you see. I ask, where do the dead go when they breach the edge of time? Do they melt into hive mind? And yes, maybe no, I don't know what I don't know. Only see what I've seen, speaking tongues on the edge of my seat. Always on like my mama's TV. You and I, different spaces, stuck here waiting tables in hell. You and I, different paces with similar symptoms to quell.
There we go.
All right,
How are you feeling about that?
it's fine.
Okay.